turn 1 of our new campaign in World of War in the East 2. Well, the first turn of the German invasion is scripted, so I think there's nothing to be surprised about here, really. This turn summary gives losses over 300,000 infantry, 5,000 artillery, 2,000 tanks, and 5,000 airplanes. I do believe the latest patches, one of them has reconfigured the AI or scripting of the air attacks of the first turn. So I think this number was quite a lot lower, maybe 3,500. So now you lose 5,000 obsolete planes instead of a little bit less. I think this is higher. I couldn't tell you if these are normal losses, but I'm sure they are. And of course, the total amount of losses is going to be about the same in every campaign you play, because it's the same historical forces that are encircled and destroyed at the border, at the Polish border. So I'm not going to focus a lot on these losses until a bit later, when the AI has cleared up the surrounded forces. There's nothing much noteworthy here. I think there's a pocket here. There's a huge pocket here, as is normal. And Germany has pushed into Minsk. I also noticed that they managed to capture Riga, which I think is a standard move for the German AI to do. They of course captured the 2 ports on the Baltic here, leaving my troops here, whatever few troops are here, out of supply. They did not manage to destroy or well, the 2 airborne brigades have barely no forces in them, but at least they didn't shatter. They're depleted, but they can be sent back into reserve, and another brigade here is not attacked. I think the German AI can encircle, and definitely a human German player could encircle these airborne brigades. So I guess I'm happy I can refill them and train them up in the reserve. Is there any chance for me to get anything out of these pockets? No. And I know a new feature here is that you cannot, well, you can relocate headquarters. But I think they will only relocate within this pocket now. You can't magically teleport an HQ and their attached support, well, like artillery, etc., anti-air assets attached to these headquarters. Before you could relocate these headquarters and they would teleport outside of these encirclements, and that way you could save the support units. What I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna even, I'm not gonna try to do that, because it's kind of an exploit. So all these items in here, support units, headquarters, and ground units, they will be lost. Interesting, in the south, well, there's a smaller pocket around here, and it seems the AI has Lvov as their main focus here in the south, and they definitely stay above the turn 1 southern front activation line, which means that if the AI or any German human player would push south of this line here, that would activate the entire southern front, which is the purple forces down here, meaning that now on my turn these will be locked up against the border. What used to happen in War in the East 1, the first version of the game, was that you were able to link up German panzers with the Romanian border and basically cut off the super Lvov encirclement and cut off all these forces here, which will leave the Soviets with a ridiculously low density of forces in the south, or anywhere for that matter. And there were house rules and there were supply, and I think they introduced some sort of, this front activation might have been in the first version of the game, but they never quite got around to preventing that super love encirclement. And honestly, I didn't like that they couldn't get a firm grasp on the situation, how to prevent this. This looks much more historical. It's hard enough playing as the Soviets in my mind in 1941. If you want a historical result. If you are a kind of player that wants the Wehrmacht to reach the end of the map, well, then maybe stuff like that should be. But I'm more looking to replay World War II in historical fashion, or with the historical possibilities. So what they've done is the German AI isn't really pushing directly towards Kiev. He's going a southerly route through Lvov, and I suppose that's fine. There's a main railway he can repair here to Tarnopol, Proskorov, and I suppose to Vinnytsia. And from Vinnytsia, well, he could either go north towards Kiev or just continue straight east. So I suppose this is an okay scripted AI move. I don't know if this is what the AI does every first turn. Maybe they have a different, maybe they breach this activate, so there's like a random selection. Don't ask me. So that's what they, okay. Let's jump into what I decided to do. That's the save game. I need to exit the scenario and load my turn 1 end. Basically, what you usually do is you put all or most of your air units into the reserve, what remains, what's left of it, to reorganize it. You pull all your support units, which is basically artillery, anti-air, mortars, and artillery, like core army and front assets, into your Stavka headquarter, and maybe you send some of them to your reserve for them to train and regain some morale. So I did that. I did keep some air forces on the board, on map. And why did I do that? Well, basically because it's been a long time since I played, and I felt I needed to rehearse, to relearn, basically just how to operate the air system. It's not super complicated or super difficult, but I kind of forgot, and I felt insecure about how to handle that. So I figured leaving a couple of air units on the map. Well, you can't pull all of them into the reserve anyway, so, and I kind of try to set them up on air bases and manually handle them a bit. I found it a little bit challenging, but I wasn't entirely lost. Other than that, I couldn't tell you, but what I did was I railed up a couple of good infantry units from the south to help me cover the approaches to Moscow and Leningrad. Because historically Stalin elected to defend primarily in the south, and these forces had more density and better quality, and that is the setup of the game as well. And as I see it, you have more distance to withdraw in the south, so you can basically transfer forces from the south up to the center and the north and defend there where there's a shorter distance to the main targets of Leningrad and Moscow. And then you can reinforce with new forces here in the south to defend, well, the Dnieper line, Stalino and Rostov and Kharkov, which I guess are the main objectives of the summer 1941 offensive. So it's nothing extremely creative with this move, but I guess there's a bit of a choice where you deploy these railed reinforcements. And I, being inexperienced as I am, I basically have these guys, the orange infantry divisions here. They are on rail, as you can see by this icon here. And I don't quite know what happens if a German armored Panzer Spearhead would attack these. Would they have some defensive capabilities? I can't remember, and I haven't checked the manual yet. Feel free to remind me in the comments if you watch this and you're an expert of the game or know that aspect of it. So let's go from the north. I did manage to scrounge together some sort of skirmish line or thin line with a lot of security, battalion regiments, a couple of divisions and fortification. Well, this is basically nothing, but there are a few pre-made forts here. There is a river line, there is a town. You need to, I want to slow down the German spirits, maybe not by fighting them, but not allowing them to run roughshod without any opposition. I'm hoping for them to kind of get in contact with this line, but not being able to push over it on turn 2. And then maybe I can keep the panzers occupied on turn 3 as well, before the German infantry moves up there. I emptied out the Baltic Islands and garrisons here. All I have is I'm keeping one single brigade and I guess a security regiment in Tallinn here. I guess I did not disband this fort because I couldn't. Well, some forts you can and some forts you can't disband on turn 1. In previous patches, closer to release, let's say a year ago, you could, if you wanted to, you could disband any fort, which I think maybe is a bit of an exploit. But for me, it's really hard to know if 20 guns and 837 trained manpower in a level 2 fort is worth the movement points and spent ammunition and fuel on a German unit attacking. I sure as hell know that it won't give him a lot of losses. It's basically a very unbalanced ratio of losses when they attack, but maybe the speed bump these units provide is worth it. I have no idea if that's the case, but I think I decided to leave when we come down to the south a couple of forts that I could have disbanded. I guess I tried in the pocket here to kind of catch a couple of units around Minsk, sacrificial moves here, so like maybe they have to clean this up instead of just leaving them to start for another turn. I guess I managed to semi-encircle some sort of motorized unit here. I don't even know if it's a regiment or a division. Let's say it's 3 regiments from the same divisions here. That's my main guess. I suppose I decided to defend the river line at Gomel, in front of Gomel. What's the name of this town? Shlobin. So I have a screen of infantry here, and I guess my hope for turn 2 is that, again, the German panzers will reach this river line but not be able to cross it on turn 2 because there is zonal control around these units, and maybe their movement factors won't be enough to encircle and cut these off. Maybe a human opponent would be able to do this, of course losing a lot of fuel and preparedness by doing it, but that's what happened in the first version, that you could so easily get cut off if you defended with just a few forward units. But I'm counting on the AI being a little bit more cautious or not as aggressive or good at making encirclements, and maybe even that they don't have enough movement factors to cut these off. So kind of a forward zone of control skirmish line here. And we skipped, of course, the very important land bridge, as it is called. It's this part of land between Vitebsk and I guess the Mogilev area here in front of Smolensk. And what I managed to do was a single infantry division line with, I guess, a retreating zone of control sacrificial small division with a couple of units behind here. And I got some weak units that I couldn't put into reserve refitting into Smolensk. So they will be starting to building sort of a small fortification level here. And the Polotsk fortification line here. This is all part of the old Stalin fortification line from before Germany and USSR shared Poland between them in the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Anyhow, Veliki Luki has some sort of line here. I railed in a couple of reinforcements. So I guess the 22nd Army, well, let's check it out. Oh well, this 22nd Army has 105,000 men. So that's a decent army. Whereas I know I put the 20th Army here around Pskov under the command of Zhukov. That's what I did with my action points. Oh no. I also put the Neva group under Vasilevsky's command here in Leningrad. He's a good, well, let's call it, he's a good engineer leader. He's good at helping troops making fortifications, as far as I can figure it out. So I guess for now, this is where I put in a bit of an effort, putting reinforcements here around Veliki Luki. I did not rail in, I just put some remnants in Mogilev here from falling back from the front line, and the 22nd Army? The 19th Army, sorry about that. Ivan Boldin is an average, he's a decent leader with average 4.5, so I left him in command. You can basically exchange one or maybe two leaders of an army every turn. So my hope is to catch and slow down the German panzer spearheads here and fall back towards Smolensk, and then maybe I haven't decided if I'm gonna leave a garrison to be surrounded and surrounded and cut off and killed off in Smolensk while I fight with Vyazma. We'll see about that. So that's the center. Oh boy, this is taking longer than I expected. What time are we on the stream? That's 18 minutes already? Jesus, I have basically done nothing and I'm able to talk so much. In the south, I railed out what I could, but some of the units had very low movement capabilities. So I guess I decided to leave a couple of forts and maybe not use the maximum movement capabilities of certain armored units and kind of leave a zone of control net of units falling back, in a way trusting that the AI won't be as aggressive when it comes to major encirclements as a human opponent could be. And I'm obviously hoping to fall back with as much as possible. I made a mistake here. I should probably have disbanded this division, the 99th Rifle Division, because even though I lowered it to 50% max force of the division, it's gonna refill. I know that from after the turn. So going from I basically waste the reinforcements going into the division. I'm not sure if I could have disbanded it. I couldn't put it into the reserve. But now there's going to be a lot of reinforcement going into this. That I suppose it's going to be cut off and killed maybe turn 2, 3, or 4, something like that. Because It's just too slow to get out of the grasp of the pincers. Excuse me. And obviously I could do nothing with the southern front. They're locked. I decided to rail out a couple of mountain divisions down towards Crimea, which actually has a bit of mountains, where I think they have a certain advantage. Alright, I'm not going to keep this going on longer than I already had. There's not a lot to do on turn 1 except what a huge defeat these encirclements is going to be, and try to build up a secondary line, and that is basically what I did. Alright, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments in the comments, I'd be happy to answer them. And I hope you enjoyed the stream. I'll see you in the next one.